yeah, looking forward to being part of this whole thing.
No worries. Thank you. So we are exactly at on 10:45, 11 UTC, and we will be beginning the session. So welcome all participants. My name is Jaideep Singh, and I'm the Secretary General of the MUN at Home program at MUN Impact. And I'm honored today to present to you our speaker for the day for this session, Mr. Martin Stavenhagen, who is the co-founder and the director of SD Consulting, which is something to do with sustainable development, and about the circular economy, which is something which we're going to talk about today, specifically talking about nature and how circular economy, what it is all about, and how it can help us in the future. So without further ado, I'll be handing it over to Mr. Martin to take over the proceedings, and I hope you enjoyed the session. We'll be putting you into breakouts in between in certain stages of the workshop. So please do look out for breakout invites when we tell you breakouts have been opened. So with that, Mr. Martin, all yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me, yeah? And you can see my presentation, I hope. Great. I also have the chat function here, which I'll keep open if I want to share something with you. Well, good morning, everybody. It's very nice to be with you. As I was just kindly introduced, I'm a consultant I own my own business basically called SD Consulting in Singapore. I'm talking to you from Germany right now. And I would really like to, I was invited to give a speech here or like to have a workshop with you guys, and I'll try to make it as interactive as possible. I would like to talk about how nature knows best and how circular economy approaches support the SDGs. Because I think like sustainable development and circular economy basically go hand in hand. And I would like to explain a little bit on what my thoughts are on that. So the agenda for today is, why is the circular economy sustainable, or the linear versus the circular economy, and what butterflies have to do with that? How does the circular economy support the SDGs is number 2, or systems within systems and donuts. We'll talk about donuts, which I'm quite excited about. And what does circular economy look like in practice? What are circular business and city models? We'll see how much time we have for that, because I want you guys to be able to interact a little bit as well. The idea is that after this workshop, you will understand the key values of the circular economy. You will be able to connect the SDGs to the circular economy, and you will be familiar with real-life applications in business and cities, which is a really good start for you to get going on circular economy and see see how this will work with your MUN work and your SDG work. Before we start, it would be great to write your name and where you're located into the chat. I'll just give you a minute. So I see India, I see United Arab Emirates, Ireland, Qatar, Argentina. I'll put in Köln, Germany here. And if I see correctly, currently we are 42 participants. Great. You will have an opportunity to interact with each other. Please continue to write into the chat. I will continue. So why is the circular economy sustainable? Well, I don't know if you heard about the Earth Overshoot Day. What it says here is, like, if we used the resources according to these different countries, that is by what time we would have like used up the regenerative or renewable resources of the Earth at that date. For the entire world, on the 22nd of August, humanity's demand for ecological resources and services exceeds what the Earth can generate on the, well, that's on the 22nd of August of 2020 this year. Maybe that would be, like, as you can see, Indonesia and Ecuador are almost within the resource consumption that the Earth produces each year. While if we all lived like in the United States, Canada, or Denmark, we'd be using 4 Earths instead of 1. Currently, we're using almost 2 Earths. And in 1970, this Earth overshoot was in December. In 1980, it was November 4th. In 1990, it was September 23rd. And in 2020, or in 2010, it was August 7th. Now it's a little bit later, in August 22nd. Do you know why? Oh, you can't answer. Probably because of COVID. Because of that, we have a little bit less resource consumption this year than we had in the preceding year. Otherwise, it's always been going early and early and early, the Earth overshoot day. Maybe you've heard of the World Economic Forum's 2020 Global Risk Report. It has 750 global experts and decision makers who are asked to rank their biggest concerns in terms of likelihood and impact. And interestingly, this year, for the first time, environmental threats topped the 5 top points for likelihood and the 3 out of 5 for impact. And that would be climate action failure, biodiversity loss, extreme weather events, natural disaster, and human-made environmental disasters. So all of these have to do with the ecological and biosphere and climate change and the risks that environmental developments cause for economy, society, and social well-being. And it's the first time that this was the case. So maybe let's look at what the circular economy is, and it might be helpful to have a look at what the linear economy is first. So the linear economy, maybe you can think of an example. For example, you extract raw materials to maybe make a plastic bag or like a can for a can of Coke or a can of some other soda. So you extract the raw materials. For the plastic bag would be oil or aluminium for the can. Then you produce the product. You maybe use the product once with the can, probably, maybe even twice or 3 times with the plastic bag. And then you throw it away into the garbage. It goes into the landfill or might be burned. But what that means is that all the valuable materials that went into your plastic bag in the beginning are lost. And also like all the energy and the labor that went into that. So what's the effect of that? Well, this is the take, make, use, lose scenario. Basically, the global material consumption since the 1970s has become more than 3 times more, and even the per capita consumption is almost twice as much as it was only 50 years ago. And that is including global population growth, global gross domestic product growth, and so on. So this is kind of a dire situation. We currently use 92 billion tons, or last year, 92 billion tons of materials each year, and that's up from 27 billion tons. And even individual consumption has gone up to more than 12 tons of materials per person each year. And that's an average. Like obviously in the developed world, countries, emerging economies, this will be lower, right? So that is like a huge difficulty. In case my internet connection wavers, I will be back. Don't worry about it, yeah? But this is the opposite scenario. What if waste and pollution was never created in the first place? What if we could build an economy that uses things, or that uses things rather than uses them up over time? And what if we could not only protect, but actively improve the environment? As a thought experiment, maybe think of a forest, and think of the concept of waste equaling food. In a natural ecosystem, there basically is no waste. If you have a leaf that a tree doesn't need anymore, it falls to the ground, then that automatically becomes an input for something else. In this case, that leaf might turn to soil and become a nutritious snack for an earthworm or a beetle or some other animal or microorganism. So basically, there is no waste. Every byproduct that is not used in one system automatically becomes a valuable input into a new system. And maybe just to make it very, very easy, think of waste equaling food. And that is a great way to understand the circular economy. So we already talked about the linear economy. That's like using raw materials to make a product, and then basically after using it once or maybe twice, for example, the package, it is thrown away. Basically, the second you open something, the packaging is already useless. Then there's the recycling economy, which is better. So materials are reused. For example, waste glass is used to make new glass, and waste paper is used to make waste paper. Like plastic from bottles is used to make new bottles, but how often can a plastic bottle actually been recycled? Like not more than, it's actually like only about 7 times before the quality goes down. So the recycling is definitely better because materials can be reused, but the future would actually be in the circular economy. that this is actually necessary in order to have enough raw materials for food, for housing, for heating, for all kinds of necessities for daily life. It means preventing waste by making products and materials more efficiently, or using them more efficiently, and also by reusing them, by circulating them or looping them. And if new raw material is needed, one has to make sure that you obtain it sustainably, so you don't damage the natural environment or the human environment. Basically, you have to stay within the carrying capacity of the earth for new materials. Yeah. So from take, make, use, lose, from the linear economy, you go to continuous circular reuse. So the circular economy is restorative and regenerative by design. There are three principles. You design out waste and pollution, or you redesign. You keep products and materials in use, or you recirculate them, and you regenerate natural systems. And we will come back to that. Yeah, but think of these three principles: redesigning to eliminate waste and pollution, recirculating to keep products and materials in use, and regenerating natural systems. Yeah. So obviously the circular economy can be quite confusing. There's like so many terms, and you can see here that there's like many different concepts, and how can you keep track of all of them, right? How do you know what actually belongs together? How can you like form a picture in your head that actually makes sense to you, right? So I have a suggestion for you. Take a deep breath. And think of a butterfly. Very beautiful, right? And now this butterfly will help you to understand this here. This is the circular economy butterfly. Basically, you have two big loops, which are the wings of the butterfly. And the idea is that you take resources that seem like waste or that have been used once, but then you loop or circulate them back into use. And the two wings of the butterfly are for two different cycles. The one on the left is green, and it's for biological materials and products, for example, food or any kind of natural input. And the one on the right, which is blue, would be for technical inputs or technical materials, like, for example, an iPhone or an electronic thing, or anything that is produced, cars, whatever. So biological materials can be safely re-entered into the natural world, and they will biodegrade there over time. And then they will return the embedded nutrients to the environment. Think of the leaf that we were talking about earlier in the forest, right? That's a biological material, no harm done, goes back into nature, gets rid of its nutrients, or spreads its nutrients back, and no harm done, basically biodegrades by itself and adds back to nature. With the technical materials, it's a bit different. These cannot re-enter the environment. So that's why, like, for example, metals, plastics, or synthetic chemicals, that's why they must continuously cycle through the system, so their value can be captured and recaptured. And if you look at the wing, at the blue ring, at the blue side, you see the different loops, right? And the idea is it's always good to stay as in the lower loop, in the lowest loop as possible. So basically, it's much better to share something, yeah, than to maintain or prolong it or to reuse it. And also, like, to fix it, to refurbish it, that's great if you can't share it anymore. But also, interestingly, only at the very end, you have the recycling loop, right? Why is that? Well, if you think of like a glass jar or some other product, if you break it and then like recycle the glass and try to make it into something new, then all the work and all the effort that came into this glass jar in the beginning, making it from silicone and sand and putting in all the work and like heating it up and all the energy, all of that work and material and energy and labor that is in that glass is lost. While if you actually just continue to reuse that glass in some way, maybe because you share it with somebody else, or you reuse it for another purpose, you maybe fill it with something else, maybe you can even repair it, like put it back together if there's just a little crack in it, that always like creates higher value. And the circular economy always tries to create material and product value, or keep material and
I guess Mr. Martin.
Just two more things for this slide. and then maybe we'll go into a short breakout. Yeah. Um, two more things for this slide. One thing is look at users and consumers. There's the consumer on the biological side and the user on the technical side. The idea behind that is obviously you consume food, you consume a natural resource, but do you actually consume a washing machine or a car or a phone? Like maybe it would be much better to think of that as using it than consuming it, because consuming means you use it and then it's gone. But with the washing machine, the car, the iPhone, all of these products, table, furniture, whatever it is, that is not necessarily the case. And that leads me to my second point. Think of access versus using something, right? Like, do you really need to own everything that you use? For example, if you want to if you need a hole in the wall to hang up a picture, do you actually need to own the drill? Or do you just have to borrow the drill to actually make that hole, and then you don't need the drill anymore? Similar with a car. On average, a car is in motion or being used for about an hour a day, but that also means it's being parked and not used for 23 hours a day. Now, for those 23 hours, do you really need that car? Or would it be better to only have access to a car when you need it? Those are some of the ideas on access versus use. All right. So I would suggest to maybe do a 4-minute breakout. It says 5 minutes, but maybe 4 minutes is enough. And I would like you to go into groups of 3 people. You will be automatically assigned and talk about with each other, what was the last thing you shared with somebody else, that you repaired, that you bought secondhand, or that you recycled or composted. And I just want you to quickly share with each other. The time will be ticking, and I think you'll get like I think you'll be told when it's like 60 seconds left or 120 seconds left. Yeah. So just find yourself together in groups and please exchange and also get to know each other a little bit. Yeah. And answer this question to each other, just about 1 minute each.
Okay, breakouts have been opened. Please enter your breakouts.
I'll join as well. Why not, right?
Yeah, no worries.
All right, cool. See you in a minute.
Delegates, please join your breakouts. You must have got an invitation. Admin don't want to join, it's fine. Or you want to join, you can actually. There's delegates in the room, you can join. Yeah. Yes, delegates, you must have got an invitation to join a room. This is just an interaction activity by our presenter. So if you could join a room, it would be great. I've already assigned a room to everybody. Delegates, please keep your cameras off. Thank you. Please keep your cameras off.
Oh, okay. So now I have to go back to sharing my screen, right?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for sharing. That was quite interesting. Here we go. Yeah, so thanks for sharing. You all basically already talked a little bit about which parts of the one part of the butterfly you are actually employing in your own life, right? And maybe at this point, it would be interesting to see how does the circular economy apply to the SDGs as well, right? I mean, I think some of you might have like some some pretty obvious ideas on how they could go together. Let's see. So the circular economy is sustainable as it brings together economic, environmental, and social benefits and creates the triple bottom line. At least that is one way of looking at it. And where economic development and social progress meet, you would have the fair world. You would have a livable world between social progress and environmental responsibility, where living conditions are in a way that a good life is possible. And economic development, environmental responsibility is a viable world where there's obviously a balance, and you have to make sure that you don't go, you don't like have, you have enough economic development to progress socially, but you have not too much environment, you only have economic development in a way that it doesn't impact on your environmental responsibility. And for the circular economy, you do try to like stay within the boundaries and like emulate nature. Some of the benefits are on the economic side, you have economic growth, potentially. You have jobs, you have innovation, and you have material cost savings. And of course, on the business side, you have like new profit opportunities and new customers and new business models as well. Environmentally, you save on greenhouse gas emissions, you save on virgin material consumption, and also you reduce land degradation and increase soil health. So basically, the soil and the land use for agriculture or for other purposes is actually increased. And you have more land use for productive purposes as well. And of course, societal benefits includes, for example, an increased disposable income. You can like maybe like afford more things if you share them. You have greater utility. You have like more usefulness. You have reduced obsolescence. So things can be used over and over again and don't break down because the supplier of the good has an interest in this actually being useful for longer. And you also have improved health because there's less toxicity, less poison and so on in the products because they are more sustainable. All right. These are systems within systems. Obviously, quite self-explanatory that the economy includes the businesses, the households, the commons, finance, and the interactions. You have society around that, which are communities, to some degree also families, cities, regions where these people live, which are embedded in the biosphere. Ecosystems, plants and animals, air, rain, sunshine, everything called eco-services as well, right? Soil health, and so on. So that also has to do with the SDGs that are that can be organized in a similar way. So you would have SDGs like, for example, the life underwater and life on land in the biosphere. You would have a variety of different SDGs in the societal bracket or in the societal system. Most of them actually are like all of them from 1 to 5 and most others as well. And you have the economy in there as well. And some SDGs also would have to do with economic benefits. Like for example, number 8, which would be decent work and economic growth, or number 9, industry, infrastructure, innovation, and so on, right? if you look at this, does this maybe remind you of something? It looks like circles within circles, right? And one very smart economist, Kate Raworth, thought of donut economics. And the main idea is that you replace the current goal of economic growth at any cost, which drives climate change, which drives the breakdown of biodiversity and so on, with the goal of thriving and balance. Basically, like a forest thrives and is balanced, right? And doesn't grow more than is useful for that forest, although it continues to grow, but within its limits and in a way that is by definition sustainable. What is most interesting here is the inner and the outer ring of the donut. So the ring on the inside before the hole is the social foundation, basically the foundation you need for social well-being. And on the outside is the ecological ceiling, which you can't go over. And in the middle is the safe and just space for humanity. And I would like to show you a quick video. Let's see if this works. If not, I'll share the link with you later. Just a second. Share screen. Here we go. And hopefully this will work. It's just 1 minute. If it doesn't work, then basically I will share the link with you later.
In the 20th century, economics lost its purpose and started chasing the false goal of GDP growth. In recent decades, that has pushed many societies into deepening inequality, and it's pushing us all towards ecological collapse. This century calls for a new goal, meeting the needs of all within the means of the planet. In other words, it's time to get into the donut, the sweet spot for humanity. But that's no easy task. Today, billions of people still fall short of their daily needs, from food, housing, and energy to healthcare and education. And yet, collectively, we've already overshot our pressure on some of Earth's most critical life support systems, driving climate change and the breakdown of biodiversity. What we do to this Earth in the next 50 years will shape the next 10,000. So let's replace that last century goal of endless growth with the goal of thriving in balance. And if we're to have half a chance of getting there, what economic mindset would be fit for the task?
And that's it already. It's just a very short video, and there are more of these if you're interested in that. But I do want to take the opportunity to quickly show you, for example, here's the donut. I will share the links with you, right? So you will see the links. But what's really interesting is here you can actually see in the donut where the world globally is like rather on the safe side. Zone basically over the ceiling. So here, for example, in land conversion, you can see that the planetary boundary would be that at least 75% of forest covered land should remain, but current value is only 62%. And that's bad because there's no balance. Same with climate change, obviously, right? We should be at 350 parts per million, and currently it's more than 400. So the number here is a little bit outdated. In the middle, you can see the social foundation. For example, in health, what you would see is population in countries with under 5 mortality rate exceeding 25 per 1,000 live births is 46% in 2015. And that's a direct SDG goal. And you can see how the SDG goals actually fit into the donut, right? And one last thing I actually want to show you. I don't have so much time. I would love to talk for this longer. This is another web page where you can actually compare different countries. So here you would compare the United States, who have a lot of problems on the outside of the donut with the ecological boundaries, while there are fewer problems here in the middle in the social threshold, although also like on equality and on employment, there are also like problems here, right? Here you actually see the data below. And I just compared with Indonesia because I've been to Indonesia a few times before. And you can see, and also because they're very far on the end of the global overshoot day. And you can see that here, the social threshold, there are probably more gaps, more things to do. but then they are doing a lot better on the ecological boundary of the donut, right? So that is something I wanted to share with you. You will be able to have a look at that later. So maybe I'll go back to my presentation. And here you see how the donut would fit, or how the SDGs would fit into the donut. Maybe quite interesting to see how everything actually belongs together and where which SDG would be. Here you see the thing that you saw before with the dangerous gaps that you can see in red, almost like an alarm signal, where the donut is not being adhered to, or where the ceiling or the inside, the social foundation of the donut is not being adhered to. And this is from an academic paper. I don't really want to go into that too much, but you can see that here some of the goals that have a very, very strong link to the SDGs would be specifically affordable and clean energy. Obviously good for air, less environmental pollution, less greenhouse gas emissions, decent work and growth. Obviously the circular economy is a huge engine for growth, because we manufacture all these things. What you could do with products instead of throwing them away would create new jobs, which is many more jobs. Repair cafes, fixing things, sharing things, organizing things. That's a lot more jobs than just waste management. Yeah, of course, sustainable, responsible consumption and production is at the heart of the circular economy. That covers everything: regenerate, recirculate, redesign. Clean water and sanitation is the same thing like with energy. You have better access and less pollution if you actually manage sanitation and water access, which has social benefits, but environmental benefits as well. And life on land obviously has to do with the circular economy as well. Some other things also would have to do with it. For example, the climate action, sustainable cities and communities. According to this paper, this is the strongest link, but there's like many other links as well. Yeah, maybe I would like invite for another 3-minute breakout, but I would also like enjoy to give you the opportunity to ask questions if you have any questions at this time. We can also leave the questions for the end, but if you have any urgent questions, ask now. And don't go into the breakout room. Otherwise, everybody else who doesn't have a question right now, go into the breakout rooms only for 3 minutes and talk about which sustainable development goal do you see as most closely linked to the circular economy. Just exchange what the sustainable development goals that you know or that you have worked on, which one you feel is mostly related, if you can, yeah?
Thank you, Mr. Martin. As Mr. Martin said, I'm going to open the breakout rooms once more. If you have a question, do stay in the room and you can ask your question. Otherwise, please enter your room and you can talk about this question, this thought about which SDG is most closely related to the circular economy. So I'm opening up the rooms now. If you have a question, please stay back. If you don't, go ahead and enter your room and initiate a conversation. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and I'll call out your name and then you can unmute yourself and ask your question. So if you have a question, please raise your hand using the Zoom option. Anyone with questions?
Sorry, I'm trying to type, but I can actually just answer what I'm seeing in the chat, like verbally.
Sure.
About the donut, basically there's like a social foundation in the middle and an ecological ceiling on the outside, and you try to be in the safe and just space in between. Basically having like fulfilled the social needs that you have and economic needs that you have in the middle, and you try to not use more resources or more eco-service from the earth than is possible. That's the outer boundary. And there's this beautiful safe and just space in between. I will send around a video. I will send around the links later one more time so you can have another look in peace and quiet to actually have a look. Can we have access to the PowerPoint after the session? I think I could make a PDF out of it and maybe share it later. Yeah, but I guess we can do that later. Does the fashion industry encourage linear economy? The quick fashion definitely does. Actually would encourage linear economy, but there are circular economy as well. I'll actually come to an example of a clothing rental service, which is all about sharing clothing. So there are like really good possibilities, or you can even rent jeans. Mud Jeans is like a company in the Netherlands that where you rent out jeans, and yeah, you kind of pay as you use, which is quite
Yes. Any other questions? Mr. Martin, do we have you still? Yeah, okay. Any other questions?
I have the question here from China, from Yushuan. The circular economy, it's a good question. It's a big one. Like, there are plans, actually, even in China, there are a lot of like plans, and the 5-year plan, circular economy takes a big space. Some of the problems are the environment. Like, basically, does it make sense for them? Like, for example, taxes would have to be a little bit different. You would have to tax resource consumption, and you shouldn't really tax labor. Like, there's like some incentives or some ways the system is structured that is not very helpful for the circular economy. And a lot of people also don't know. Plus, people are always afraid of change. Like, if things work the way they do now for businesses or for consumers, why should I care? You have to have like a little bit of an understanding of the difficulty. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I can like get to all the questions, but maybe one more. In the donut, can one of those circles not survive without the other? For example, nature cannot survive without community to maintain it. Good question. I would argue this: humans cannot survive without both parts of the donut. Of course, the nature couldn't survive without economy. That's not really a problem. Nature doesn't need the economy. We need the economy. So society is in the middle between economic or social foundation and the ecological boundaries. We need both. And that's why we have to balance it, because if we just go into one area, we will not have enough of the other. Nature itself will be fine. But of course, I mean, we're part of nature. In some way, nature would adapt, and maybe would adapt without us if we can't take care of balancing these two needs. Maybe so far? Oh, are people still in the breakouts, right?
Yes, I'll close the rooms now. And we have about 6 more minutes.
Oh, we have 6 more minutes for the entire presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
But it's been amazing to have you here indeed.
Tell me when I have 2 minutes left, okay?
Sure, sure.
Okay, everybody. So now comes you will get the presentation so you can have a look at it yourself. What does the circular economy look like in practice? I have some really amazing examples, and Jaideep will like help me to like just remind me when I have 2 minutes left to get to the last slide. I love this. Ecosia.com or ecosia.org is like a search engine, and every time you actually use it, it plants trees for you. It's actually carbon negative. The more you use it, the more CO2 gets removed from the air. And there's very, very few examples of companies that are actually carbon negative. You see the SDGs it touches on before. You can also see on the site how they use your money. But like, if Google, for example, did this, they could take care of 10 to 20% of necessary tree planting for CO2 emissions. They're still relatively small, but they're growing and they're wonderful. I don't see any reason why anybody should not be using Ecosia. They give good search results, they keep your privacy, and they do something environmental friendly. So if you take one thing, please switch to Ecosia for searching. I've been doing it, and I think up there you see I already planted 2,000 trees. You see that in there, right? Plus another trees from the cell phone. So 100 million trees have been planted in the last few years by them. This is a beautiful way what cities could look like. It's called the vertical forest, bringing nature into urban housing. This is in Milan, but now it's in like dozens of other cities in Latin America, in Asia, China, in Europe as well. And there are like 800 trees on this building, just bringing up biodiversity into the city. You can, I hope you can see the pictures. Do you see the Zoom group chat? Maybe I should put this away. And you see, you see also like it's a microclimate. You can like actually save on cooling. You can, it protects you from the sun. And it brings biodiversity back into the city, and obviously does something for climate action as well. So that's a beautiful example for more sustainable cities. Repack, wonderful example of packaging, eliminating packaging waste. I can't really go into like all the details, but what I can tell you is that it's made from recycled plastic. Specifically for mail orders, you can use it, like unpack it and then just put it back into the mail and get sent back. Interestingly, this one package has more, like to produce recycled plastic is more energy intensive than paper, but from the second or third use on, the carbon footprint gets better. And like because you can use these for 20 to 40 times, and if you use it for 20 times, you have 80% less greenhouse gas emissions, and you have like a lot less material footprint because you have to look at 20 separate paper packages from Amazon or whatever versus one repack. Plus, once you can't use it anymore, it can be recycled again. So it can go over and over and over again, and you can like recirculate this, right? Last two examples I have, this is Style Theory, a service in Southeast Asia. My wife actually uses it, and yeah, you can just order like whenever you want. I think you pay like 60 or $100 a month, and whenever you want, you order 3 new dresses or 3 new articles of clothing. You wear them for as long as you like. Once you don't like them, you send them back and get 3 more. You just share the clothing. They have like 40,000 dresses, and they call it the invisible wardrobe, or the biggest wardrobe you could have. Plus social benefit, you might get even more respect at work because you're really well dressed. At least that's what I've been told.
Martin, 2 minutes to go.
2 minutes left. And this is networks. This is basically old fisher nets that have been recycled from the nylon, and then they use it for carpet tiling. It's a wonderful example of social enterprise, and they yeah, this you can look up by yourself. I think I have like 2 or 3 slides left. Just to summarize, right? The 3 principles, what I want you to take home is the butterfly, and the 3 principles that are based on the butterfly: design out waste and pollution, keep products and materials in use, and regenerate natural systems. Then the inside and the outside of the donut, the social foundation in the middle, and the ecological seating around, and then you have a safe and fair, safe and just place for all in the middle. And also that circular economy and sustainable development goals belong together. This would be the end. This is, I will now share with you, wait, I will unshare my screen. And now I will share with you the links that I have. Give me 1 second. Because I just want to make sure that you actually have everything for your own study as well. I thought this would be a really good idea. Look at this. Okay. So now maybe you just copy paste what you have here, and you have all the links for all the resources. Just copy that, paste it into your own Word document or whatever, and then you can have a look at it. One thing I would have done at the end would have been actually going into this circular economy innovation that you would like to see in your city and community. And there's a link there for like a page where you can actually design your own circular economy idea, right? Of course, there's not enough time, but you have the resource. You have all the things you have from the donut. You have all the things you need from the donut. You have all the things you need from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation with the butterfly. And you have all the examples that I was talking about, some longer, some less long. And yeah, I would have loved to like talk to you longer, but this is just a little introduction to circular economy. And I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, you'll find all the information later. And yeah, and I will make sure that you get the PDF from this presentation as well. But it's been a pleasure, and I really hope that you take the circular economy, that you can use it for your Model United Nations experience as well, and that it's a wonderful way to measure and to present what you want to do and how to be more sustainable, and maybe tell stories that convince people to be more sustainable and make more countries turn to the circular economy and support the SDGs. You can do both at the same time. Actually, you have to do both at the same time, and that's what I want to give you. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, I don't know if there's any time for questions, probably not, but if there's a last question, I'll be happy to take it.
I think to be fair to other presenters that are presenting in the next session, students should start making their way. But if they have a few minutes, maybe they can ask some more questions. And I see Ayman in Qatar is asking about the presentation. Martin, can you send me a PDF of it, and I can get it into the hands of the attendees? All right. You're muted, Martin.
Yeah. Yeah, happy to do so. And thank you very much for the feedback in the chat. That's very encouraging as well. I think the more people that promote the circular economy, the better, just like with the SDGs. For me, the circular economy is a wonderful way of presenting some of the topics of the Sustainable Development Goals, and they go really well together. Yeah, and yeah, we don't have enough time, but next time we'll do like a hands-on workshop with actually developing your own circular economy ideas. Looking forward to that, whenever that will be.
Thank you, Mr. Martin, for that presentation. Even I'm actually based in Singapore. Cody knows that. And
Oh, then we should meet, no?
I'm at Nanyang.
Cool.
And so we do a lot of circular economy things here. And actually this presentation really opened up my eyes towards more prospects in that regard. So,
well, JD, then let's stay in touch, please. And when I'm back in Singapore, we can, yeah, we can like meet, and maybe there's some other opportunities that I can help.
Definitely, definitely.
Great, love it.
And Martin, you know, at MUN Impact, you know, the topics that you've been discussing in this session are things that we discuss across different programs and different sessions. Are you a resource we can draw upon?
Always, but you know that, Cody. I mean,
I know, Martin. Thank you.
That's a rhetorical question. Yeah, but thanks for the invite. And I love the opportunity to be forced to put my thoughts together into a PowerPoint, because otherwise you don't do it. So so this is a great opportunity for me as well. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you, everyone. If you still have any questions, please post them in the chat. Otherwise, you are free to leave to your next session. And we'll be closing the room as well very soon. Thank you.
Oh, actually, there's one question from Rebecca. Do you work with profit-driven businesses in your work? And does that mean that you struggle to convince them to take into account ecological issues in their work because it costs more for them? Short answer is yes. Longer answer would be, there are some very enlightened companies, because these examples that I showed you are companies that actually do this, and it does make business sense for them. It can be tough, and I need all of your help or we all need to work together to show the opportunities. In this case, in the presentation, I didn't like focus on business opportunities or business value. There's a lot of business value that you have through innovation, through longer customer support, through more regular income, through product service models, where basically you pay monthly for the service instead of just once, right? If you rent something out. And also then that changes the whole idea, because suddenly if the product lasts longer, the company makes more money because it still belongs to the company, it's just rented out. So this whole incentive structure kind of changes with the circular economy. And I think there are a lot of companies that don't know about this or are quite uncomfortable, but there are also a lot of companies that are actually working on this. And yes, I'm trying to help with that. I also like to work with governments and policies, or let's say cities. That's also very interesting. I'm not from the business side. I studied public policy just like Cody. But yes, there is a lot of opportunity for businesses, and we are trying to help them see these opportunities, because in the end, Netflix replaced the video rental store, right? It's just a new business model, and you could say it's more sustainable because there's less materials being used. You see this all the time.
Martin, how has COVID affected movements towards circular economy and donut model, etc.?
In the European Union, they just decided on a big bailout package, 750 billion euros, part of the next budget in the European Union as well, as big as never before. Part of it as loans, part of it as grants. And I think 30% is tied to sustainable development issues. And that goes together with the European New Green Deal and all these ideas. Like right now, there's a lot of money being poured into helping struggling businesses, struggling economies, and so on. And in the European Union, you can see that they are trying as good as they can to funnel the money into like sustainable causes, sustainable business models. I guess it doesn't always work. I don't know what the discussion is in the US so much, but but there are attempts to like to a lot, like all the proponents for circular economy say, when if not now. right? Now is exactly the time. Plus, don't forget, circular economy doesn't only have the financial benefits, but it reduces the risks because you have more decentralized structures and you have less disrupted supply chains and so on. Like with medicines, with masks, with all kinds of important products, with food. If you have a more decentralized circles where people kind of like are supporting each other, then that might not always be the most preferable thing from from a pure current economic efficiency viewpoint, but you have so much more resilience, which is actually valuable, very valuable. You know, does that make sense?
I think COVID has forced the hand of a lot of people in power to just fundamentally change the way that we do things. And I think there are some positive attributes to that. Working from home, people aren't going to the offices anymore. And I think employers are realizing that, whoa, I'm spending $100,000 a year or whatever on office space, and all the spin-off inefficiencies that are created that way. And
yeah, absolutely. Maybe one more thing. I was in another presentation on the circular economy and energy yesterday with some people who know so much more about the topic than I do, and I thought it was really interesting. One of these people who worked in the energy sector for 20 years and is very interested in the circular economy. He said circular economy for him doesn't only have to do with production processes and stuff like that, not only with the industry that needs to change, but a lot with green procurement. It has a lot to do with how governments, but also other people, like anybody, big customers, how they procure things and what are the rules for the products and the services that they get, because that is like going onto the demand side. And I thought that was really, really interesting, thinking of, well, of course, if you say we want to have these office furniture, but we really care about what will happen to that in 10 years or 15 years or 20 years if we don't want it anymore. Or if we have to replace it. Same with carpeting. Like I explained this one company, which is called Interface, by the way. If the demand is there, then businesses, if they want to have these kind of opportunities, will have to adapt to them. And then also you will look at those people who get the job and those who don't get the job, and you will have like these effects of like maybe trying to emulate those people and so on. All just ideas out there, but a lot of good ideas. Some of them being put in practice already.
Definitely. It's indeed, it's a very, very vivid area of research, very variable area of research. Like one of my professors last semester, he developed he's a passionate guy about circular economy, and he developed this film which could be replacing plastics. But it's made from chitin, so biodegrades.
Awesome.
So you don't need to use single use anymore, because that uses, and it's cheap. It is not very expensive. So all of this just adds up, and it's all so much you can do.
That's
all right.
fantastic.
With that, thank you very much, Mr. Martin, for joining us today. And if any the delegates will need you to leave the room, because we need to close the room. So all delegates could leave the room, we would really appreciate it.
Thanks to everybody for your participation and for listening and for your kind remarks.
And we'll stay in touch, Mr. Martin.
Yes, let's do that. Cody, we're in touch anyway. And once I'm back to Singapore, maybe in hopefully 2 weeks or so. Are you doing all right, like in Singapore?
The situation here is really good. Comparatively much better than countries across the world. They did have their shaky moments, but they've done well.
Yeah.
Cody, I'm waiting for you to come by.
Say that again?
When is Cody coming back to Singapore? That's the question.
When are countries going to allow Americans to visit them in the future?
Where are you currently, Cody?
I'm in California.
Ah, okay. Oh, California. Okay, but you're safe, right?
I think so.
I can only see blue. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm safe. I've been mostly hunkered down. I don't go out much. Get almost everything delivered. Yeah, it's starting to get bad again. It's starting to get bad here, and I think it's becoming more tangible. Like a lot of us, a month ago, people were saying, oh, who has it? Nobody has it. But now everybody knows somebody who has had it or has suffered from it. So, but the Yahoos, the science deniers, etc. If on a lot of, I think it makes some of the international news. There's always these protests in a city near me called Huntington Beach, and that's they have these big anti-mask protests at the beach. And so that's not too far away. Not too far away from me.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Yeah. Things in Germany are a lot better.
Oh, I'm sure.
Really?
I'm gonna send the other participants out of the room, but thank you for joining.
Okay.
So Germany is definitely Germany, New Zealand, women-led nations. I'm sure.
That's an interesting correlation. Well, I mean, yeah, with New Zealand in there. Sample group of 2. Denmark. Great. Are you off to the next session, or how can I support you anymore, or?
So usually, how our conference is set up, at MU and Impact, we have 10 Zoom licenses. And so usually there's a session right after it. So I would have to shut this down promptly at, the termination of the session and then reopen for the next session. But luckily this account is free. I don't have a session plan for this next hour, but,
Awesome.
Feel free to attend any sessions you'd like. I think I sent you our VIP pass with all the links of everything. So
can you send that one more time? Would that be possible?
Yeah.
Because one thing I really wanted to look at, or one thing I potentially wanted to look at, was Sue Helen. I don't know, but you always look at the people you know, right?
She's, I think she's, here, I have it open.
Tomorrow, I think. Tomorrow morning sometime.
Yeah, tomorrow, 1100 UTC. I'll send it in your WhatsApp, okay?
Yeah, sure. Oh, is that the whole thing?
It's just like our God Pass, like a master key with all of the links and whatever. Do you need the presenter's handbook with all the?
I already have that. I already got that.
It has just the titles and the links and stuff like that.
Yeah, your team was very supportive and very helpful and all that. I mean, the only thing I didn't really know about was the breakout rooms, but that worked really well. So thanks for that technical help as well. And yeah. If we had more time, one could actually do a real workshop, with a mural or a Miro, and actually let people actually draw things and so on. So that's stuff that we're doing in other courses and that I'm starting to do. So there's a lot more opportunities. If you have even if it's just a 90-minute workshop, you can do a lot, and maybe, I don't know, 20 or 30 people or something. You can do a lot with literally setting up this table. You probably know Miro and Mural and all these programs, and let people actually draw their own circular economy ideas and stuff like that. It's cool. We actually do that. So who knows?
It's awesome with youth. Middle school and high school kids would eat this stuff up, I think, and be really engaged in it. Jaideep, I'm curious. So Jaideep is our Secretary General of our MUN at Home program. It's a program that it's a 4-week course. Each round is 4 weeks, and we focus on a specific SDG target. And we invite experts and youth activists and etc. to come present to our students. In the coming rounds, is there any overlap where Martin might be able to help out?
We have, I guess, we had sustainable technologies going on this round. So if I knew about Martin earlier, I would have contacted him about this, because circular economy and sustainable technologies are something very closely related. But I think in the coming rounds, we will be having something again on maybe life on land or other things. So we could definitely have you there then. We'd love
Yeah,
to
there's
have
no problem to connect it to almost any SDG. And also, like, I'm not even necessarily a technologist. I think I look more at the circular business models, or like the framework you need for that. So yeah, I mean, I'm not, I think likely there will be opportunities.
definitely. We'll stay in touch, and if I ever think that you're the best person for that, I'll let you know.
And also, I've, chatting with our different summit presenters, etc. I've got the beginnings of this idea of having standalone events, maybe to coincide with different, holidays or special UN days, etc. So we could do that.
Very cool. Very cool. But this is just part of what you're doing, Cody, right?
Yeah. There's a lot going on, bro. A lot.
Okay. Well, good to know. You have to tell me more about that some other time.
Jaideep, it just so happens, so Martin and I were together. So the presenter that the presenter that he mentioned tomorrow's our friend Sue Helen. Martin and I went to Sue Helen's wedding last year in Mexico, and it was right before the wedding that, right before the wedding began, Miss Martin messaged me. She's like, "Hey, would you be willing to start full time on MUN Impact?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's great." And so Martin's been known about MUN Impact since then.
Since August or whenever that was last year is when you told me. Yeah, things take time. Right now it's July. It's basically 11 months later, but this is the first time we're actually working together on this.
Mm-hmm.
So let's, again, I mean, yeah, I did MUN myself when I was younger. So,
oh, cool.
So yeah, I always like with United Nations, with SDGs, you can connect just about anything. But
and it's interesting. We're finding in our organization that we'd say most of the kids, it's interesting. But I'd say most of the kids, they're MUN kids. They're interested in MUN, and then we help them learn about the SDGs. Put a focus on SDGs and taking action on the SDGs. But then we've found, and we were kind of surprised at first, but now it makes sense. There are young people that are super interested in the SDGs or specific SDG targets, etc. And then they learn about MUN as a tool to learn and discuss and practice these things. And so it's a feedback loop. It's awesome.
Yeah. When I did MUN, I didn't learn as much content as you guys are providing. Okay, the SDGs didn't exist, but still, I mean, you learned more about the politics and the technicalities of it. But how cool to actually use MUN to actually promote something like circular economy or something else that you're passionate about. Like, if you're the Netherlands, you would have to do that anyway. But if you're, I don't know, any other country, Singapore, why not? Why not talk about circular economy at MUN from the Singapore side? Because you'll find something.
And a lot of it's interesting. A lot of countries are catching on to the power of MUN, and they're putting money into it. I don't want to let too much out of the bag, but UAE, Qatar, and many more, they see the value. I mean, it's kind of a purpose built. It's already a packaged product to get youth involved in these things, and so they're.
Plus the right kind of, I mean, the most interesting kind of youth, those that actually are interested in doing something and changing something. But I mean, I don't have to tell you that if there's any opportunity to support that, either online, there's a lot possible online, but of course, face-to-face is awesome. If there's face-to-face opportunities to support anything, you have to let me know, okay?
We'll get there. It'll happen once we're able, once restrictions.
Yeah. Like, once you can travel, you should travel. While you can't travel, let me travel.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Like, you should. I hope things will develop in a good direction. It's just that you're probably not over the hill yet. It's unfortunate, really unfortunate.
Oh, yeah. And one more thing I wanted to say about MUN Impact, just one way that I think about it is that we're the United Nations of youth. We are a model of the United Nations, and we provide a platform for the youth of the world to come together to work on global issues, actually take action on global issues. It's awesome.
I hear you. I mean, the most impressive, one of my absolute heroes of last year, like one of the few people I would call heroes, is Greta Thunberg, right? And she's not even model United Nations. She's just young and awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she's actually like proper United Nations.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, something that, you know, what has hooked me is there are so many young people in our organization that they're so passionate and they're so goddamn smart and talented. And, you know, it, as doom and gloom as it might seem in Orange County or reading the news, it's an absolute pleasure to hop on our Slack workspace and see all these awesome projects in development. And yeah, it's great.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, yeah, gives you hope, right? Cool,
Kids
man.
are all right.
Kids are all right.
Yeah.
Well said, well said. Basically, age group, like I think the people I was in my room were 16 and 17. Is that like normal, or are
Yeah,
people
it's
prefer-
primarily high school, but also some middle school and then some university students. We're developing a uni program.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's in the development, but we just have so much stuff on our plate right now. It's hard to tie everything down. But yeah, primarily high school, some middle school, and like Jaideep's in uni, and a lot of our you know, top leaders are experienced MUN delegates and people who have been through all this rigmarole for a few years and know the ropes, and they can help lead the way.
Cool. We have like, I don't know if this is interesting, like I'm part of this European organization called Climate Kick, Knowledge Innovation Community. There's a lot of kicks out there.
Okay.
It's climate-kic.org. And they do a lot of like, not only youth work, they connect literally any stakeholder. And the education thing also has a lot of students and also PhD students in there. So there's a lot of workshops that we do for like young change makers, but to be honest, that could also be done for high school. It is university students